Just like a sudden rush just flowing on through my soul now. Where the light, it feels like a certain miss someone that I wanna get up with. Where the light, everything's alright now when you're living in the light now. Come on. Where the light, where the light.
Running through rhythms, proceeding in the torch lights. Floating on melodies help me make my thoughts glide. Stay inebriated through music, I'm off my rocking into the depths of the lost eye. Jumping off a cliff in the faith, I'm a fall guy. Never falling, knowing the heavens we all fly. Fourth dimension rocket ships telling you all fly. Wake up from your slumber, my children, it's all lies. Money just like everything else, it all dies. Itself is lost and it still. Can I get a dime sack to help me focus on wealth? Not material wealth, cause true wealth resides deep inside.
Where the light, just like a sudden rush just flowing on through my soul now. Where the light, feels like a certain miss someone that I wanna get up with. Where the light, everything's alright now when you're living in the light now.
Can't hear you through yet.
I have too many things up, and I'm sorry. I'm like trying to figure out how. I don't even know how to make this like full screen. This is weird. It looks different than. Sorry.
That's
and I realized this whole time I'm talking to you, and I should just mute.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. So glad you're here. Can everybody hear and see all right? Okay. My name is Carrie Kopnick. I really want to welcome you to the Chaplaincy Institute's program on spirituality, faith, and reparations. I serve Chi as our community minister. And let's talk a little bit about what we're here to do. We're moving into Chi's truth-telling and calling in this conversation. And as Pastor Jacqueline says, this is hope manifested in Chi to make this change. We're taking faithful action. This is Chi in the interfaith community, in the role that we are meant to be, taking action, making change. Today, we're focused on the African diasporic experience. We also acknowledge the culture of dominance that brought genocide and land theft to the first people of North America. I invite you to name the indigenous lands that you are on in the chat. And I invite you to consider finding a way to support these people today. I participate in Real Rent Duwamish, paying monthly money to the federally unrecognized Duwamish tribe of the Puget Sound area. I also pay Shumi land tax to the Sogorea Land Trust that works to rematriate indigenous lands to the indigenous people in the Bay Area. I hope, did someone put in the chat the native lands? Take a look at that, not today, not right now, but as you go forward in your day. Now let's take a minute to call in the divine, start to shift into this space. I'm gonna light a candle to remind us that the divine is with us always. With my left hand and my right broken wrist. Take a moment to brush off the day. Release anything that came with you here today. Maybe apprehension you might have brought with. Let it go. Center yourself in this moment. Breathe in. Breathe out. I invite you to reach out energetically to the people in this circle beyond time and space. We're here together. This work of faithful people is not always easy, and yet here we are. One more big breath. Remember, we do this one breath at a time. Remain present. Notice your body. Here we are. Thank you, friends. And now I'd like to introduce my clergy colleague, the Reverend Sarah Donnell, who's going to guide us through the rest of the time here.
Thank you, Carrie. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all tonight. As Carrie said, I'm Sarah Donnell, and I'm going to be one of your guides for the evening. But I hope that doesn't come across. This has been very much a collective effort, and I've come in at the last minute to kind of take us from place to place. But I want to lift up the hard work of the other folks in the leadership team here. If you were part of the building of tonight, would you just wave? Leadership team, thank you. And one important member of this leadership team who's not here tonight was Pastor Jacqueline, but you will certainly feel her presence in the offerings that she was so much a part of helping to prepare. And I want to acknowledge too that tonight, as Carrie mentioned, the emphasis is really going to be, and not just of tonight, but in this work of reparations as a whole. So much of this work is about listening to BIPOC voices. And I just want to name the irony that here we are with this all-white leadership team. and there's aspects of that is maybe a little uncomfortable, but also maybe appropriate, as she is, let's be honest, a predominantly white institution and has historically been such. And reparations is work that white people, like so much of this is our work as white people. So we're here in the struggle together, hopefully not being centered in the conversation, but holding each other in it and holding ourselves and our institution accountable within it. I think that's all I want to say about that. Now I want to just give you a little overview of the arc of the evening. Yes, thank you, Ren. And I need to adjust my screen so I can see many things at once. So we've got about 90 minutes together tonight, hopefully, give or take. And we're going to be listening. We're going to be finding inspiration. We're going to be deepening our learning, hopefully. And we're going to spend some time in dialogue in racial affinity spaces. And we'll talk about that when we get there. And as I mentioned, a big goal of tonight is to start the process of building accountability structures for the next steps in this work. And this is just the beginning of a longer series. So I want to pass it to Ren to put some words around what we're opening up here.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and so grateful to be here with this beautiful crew of humans to do this work together. When I saw the Faith and Reparations Toolkit that the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity had put out, they are an amazing organization. They're rooted in the Bay Area and LA doing immigration justice work and also really centered on reparations. And I immediately felt this opportunity for CHI to come together and learn from other interfaith communities that are bringing in the lens of creating a culture of repair and reconciliation as a spiritual practice. So to counter the isolation patterns that I know I feel, and I imagine many of us feel that we need to do this work alone or we don't know who to do it with, I imagined us gathering together to listen to the voices and stories that need to be told and to reflect with those that share our identities to come together and figure out what we can do when we think and feel. When we feel together, we can think better together. So all of us are healing from white supremacy, but some benefit and some are harmed by the system differently, so that we want to do some of that work together and some of that work apart. And so after the opening of this service today, we will continue and want to invite you all to continue with us, and we'll talk more about this later, but a once a month affinity space with facilitators to look at the Faith and Reparations Toolkit together and dive in even more to how we show up in this work with our minds, hearts, and spirits. So then the program of the arc of this vision that we're creating together will end in June, around Juneteenth, and inshallah, we'll have a panel of African American spiritual leaders in reparations work to share with us, and we will close with a ceremony where we will communally pledge our accountability to the work of racial healing and reconciliation. So here's the beginning of it. Shehechianu, in my Jewish tradition, we say Shehechianu, which is for the first time that we do something together. And this is that moment at Chi and in this group of people. This is hard work, but I believe that when we do it together, we can find so much joy and compassion through it. And I want to let you know, I'll stay back after the service to answer any specific questions, but also feel free if you have some that you want to put in the chat, I can answer them later. So glad to be together.
And now we've put some words around what brings us here, and we'd love to hear from everyone. Put it into the chat. We'll just take a few minutes. What brings you to this moment here tonight? What brings you to this work? These could be one-word answers or essay answers. The wish for truth-telling. Justice.
Were you asking for this to go in the chat or to?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And just for the sake of the recording, just to share some of these out loud, a commitment to justice, to do this work together, desire, a wish for truth-telling, always being in this work in various ways, but always there, here. Rooted at Chi, and so therefore eager for this work to come alive in this community, to participate at a deeper level with reparations, to no longer abdicate my responsibility to this issue, to see better the things my whiteness has allowed me not to see. Desire for healing that's mutual for people of color, BIPOC, and myself, and see Chi in action around this. Living on stolen land, searching for authentic ways to engage in local reparations. Being involved in equity work, being your call to ministry. Thank you all.
So maybe we can bask in all of that and listen to a song from the Black spiritual tradition, one that speaks to the revolutionary power of Black folks through the centuries. This is called Tear Your Kingdom Down.
Hatred, we gonna tear your kingdom down. Oh, hatred, we gonna tear your kingdom down. We're gonna tear down your kingdom all over this land. Oh, hatred, we gonna tear your kingdom down.
I just got a call from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Racism, we gonna tear your kingdom down. Racism, we gonna tear your kingdom down. Oh, you've been building up your kingdom all over this land. But racism, we gonna tear your kingdom down. Police police violence. We gonna tear your kingdom, tear your police violence. We gonna tear your kingdom down. We gonna tear down your kingdom all over this land. Police violence. We gonna tear your kingdom down. Oppression, we gonna tear your kingdom down. Oppression, we gonna tear your kingdom down. We gonna tear down your kingdom. We're gonna tear down your kingdom. We're gonna tear down your kingdom. We're gonna tear down your we gonna tear your kingdom down.
I'm gonna just take a deep breath into that. And to continue to ground us into this work, the place to start, the obvious place to start is to think about grounding into what is reparations. If you're like me, you may be still asking, what does that question really mean? So we're going to take another moment to connect to the land on which each of us is, and connect to our bodies, and to notice our bodies as we listen to this next piece. We're going to breathe and listen to part of the Black History in 2 Minutes series. This is called Land Giving Rise to the famous phrase, 40 acres and a mule.
The months following the Civil War and the start of Reconstruction offered African Americans in the South hope for equality. It also offered the possibility of owning land. Within months, African Americans would be betrayed by a harsh reality. You probably heard the phrase 40 acres and a mule. Here's what happened. In January 1865, a meeting in Savannah, Georgia, between Union military leader General William Tecumseh Sherman and a group of 20 black ministers resulted in a plan to redistribute confiscated and abandoned Confederate land from South Carolina to Florida. They called the land Sherman's Reserve. Newly freed slaves would be allocated 40 acres of land along with a mule. The phrase, which became well known even then, spread quickly. The plan had the potential to revolutionize race relations in the South and the economic future of the African American community.
The significance about formerly enslaved being given the land that they had actually worked was that they would be able to generate wealth as well as create wealth generationally.
By the summer of 1865, thousands of black families had settled on portions of the Sherman Reserve and were excited to plot their futures. But later that year, as part of his Reconstruction plan, actually intended to appease the former Confederacy, President Andrew Johnson abruptly canceled the order, giving the land back to its previous owners.
The United States had the opportunity to make it possible for the formerly enslaved people to be economically independent, and the country failed to do it.
That initial meeting more than 100 years ago between General Sherman and Savannah's leading black ministers was historic. At least for a brief moment in history, the opinion of black leaders had led directly to a radical public policy initiative. Remarkably, over a century and a half later, on June 19, 2019, the House of Representatives held a hearing on H.R. 40, a bill named in honor of the famous phrase, 40 acres and a mule. The bill would establish a commission to study the concept of reparations for slavery and Jim Crow segregation, including the merits of a formal apology by the United States government.
Again, just want to offer the reminder to notice what's happening in our bodies as we are gathering this information into ourselves and into our group. And I want to pass it over to Ren to offer some highlights and updates about HR 40.
I just want to start by saying that I want to scream right now. So I'm going to mute myself. And if any of you want to like shake your body or scream or yell or jump or squirm on the floor, let's just take a minute to just do that. And then just maybe put a hand on your heart or on your belly. Maybe even, or a place where you need comfort in yourself. And just want to honor the work that has been going on for a while around HR 40, this bill on reparations. There was recently a panel with the Bay Area's Congresswoman Barbara Lee and several others on reparations and as this idea of repair of the past and restoration for the road ahead. And the stress in that panel was really about listening to the stories and also for folks to be able to tell their stories. And so as myself as a white person listens to the stories, I feel my job as to stay present in my body, and they offer that as the panel, like stay present in your body, really notice yourself, remain present, notice your body, and that this is one breath at a time for us, not to push through, but to really notice what comes up for us. And that is the work that we can be doing together in community, and it's also the spiritual work of this work. And reparations also is pragmatic. So as you saw, there's a democratic process. We are in a democracy. And so there are processes. I mean, some people might have other thoughts about that, but, and so there are ways for us. The more we know, the more we can act. And so they really requested at the panel, like learn, study. This is a painful reckoning that we need to do healing and repair for. And the more of us that know about this, the more of us can show up and act and actually pass this bill. So yeah, thank you all for being here to do this work together. It's big and it's going to take all of us.
Thank you, Ren. This big. It's big, and the harm can feel, and the loss can feel so, and is so widespread and ongoing. And so this is a important moment to acknowledge some loss, or to start acknowledging the loss. And we wanted to just take a moment to lift up the lives we have lost, the Black, Indigenous people of color we've lost to police violence, over 1,000 BIPOC folks killed at the hands of police in 2021 alone, folks lost to old age, and folks who were lost too young to the effects of racial injustice, the cumulative effects of this history of systematic oppression. We're thinking about folks from like Bell Hooks, Desmond Tutu, George Floyd, folks closer to our communities as well. I'm thinking personally of Matthew Taylor, Ibrahim Baba, And there are so many more. And so I want to invite you all to we'll take a moment of silence and put some names in the chat.
Emmett Till, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Robert, Stan, Hawk, Elijah, Lee and Lakota Brightman, Ahmaud Arbery, Sidney Portier, Michael Brown, Sean Bell, Desmond Tutu, Lee, Lance, Muhammad, Ellis McClellan, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Pauli Murray, Eli Josephi, Freddie Gray, baby Georgette Ellis, Stephanie. All of the names we don't know. Trayvon Martin, all of the people, not just names, we don't know. Take a moment together.
And as we're moving out of this moment of silence together, I invite us all to just take a deep breath, and as you exhale, maybe make a sound, a hum, a sigh, or a wail. Let's do one more. Let's all breathe in. And to further open our spirits to the work and struggles behind and ahead of us, I'm going to invite Rivka to start a weaving of 3 readings that we have. So Rivka will be the first of 3.
This first reading is from Do Better, Spiritual Activism for Fighting and Healing from White Supremacy by Rachel Ricketts. We are all right here, right now, for good reason. We are at the threshold of an entirely new era, a new way of living, being, and connecting. The white supremacist systems that have governed the majority of the globe for centuries can finally be overthrown. But if there is ever to be a chance to change the world for the better, we gotta get it together. We have to come together right now. We must learn to tolerate the challenging and conflicting emotions that arise when we address racism and white supremacy. Emotions like grief, guilt, anger, shame, hope, anxiety, relief, fear, and sadness, to name but a few. We must acclimate our body to withstand our own discomfort and shower ourselves in compassion so that we have a shot at bestowing that same compassion to others. Withstanding our discomfort also requires understanding that discomfort is a necessary and constant part of the work. Our goal is not to feel comfortable, because we won't. It is to better tolerate the discomfort that inherently arises. No matter your race, unless and until the violent and uncomfortable truths of white supremacy have resonated through your every cell, you will be unmotivated and ill-equipped to take the lifelong, daily, and demanding actions required to dismantle all systems of oppression as they exist within and outside of us, and create a world where all humans can finally breathe easy. Because we cannot heal what we refuse to reveal. Carrie will have our next reading.
Thank you, Rivka. This reading is from the book Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Maree Brown. It was included in that book. It's a reading by Marie Vargase. And this is To All the Land to teach us about our ancestral wounds and healing. From its own fetal curves, the green fiddleheads produce ancient spiral formations. The fiddleheads teach me to unfurl my own lineage and experience patterns, examine them, be with them, and listen to their messages. The fiddleheads are gifted time travelers. If I don't learn the lessons now, the patterns will show up in my life like an unwelcome visitor. By meditating with the spiral in mind, I can focus my attention on re-encountering the old wounds differently and imagine a new possibility. The fiddleheads teach me a vitality of perspective shift. The fiddleheads teach me to respect the slowest micro movements and own my way forward. And now I invite B to share our third reading.
This is the Bodhisattva prayer for humanity. Shantideva, Indian Buddhist sage, is from around 700 AD, and it's a prayer performed every morning by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened.
Thank you, readers and listeners. So we're going to shift from intake to more dialogue now. We're going to shift into, well, there will be the option for racial affinity spaces. And I want to just give a brief moment to acknowledge like what a racial affinity space is or can be. Because even if that doesn't necessarily materialize here and now, anytime we're for white folks being in white spaces frequently, if we're white folks being in white spaces with the goal of anti-racism, that can change a space that's frequently just a white space, in which a lot of white folks find ourselves in those spaces unquestioned a lot of the time. But we can shift into racial affinity spaces where we are doing the particular work that white folks need to do in anti-racism, in a space where we can do the work that's ours without burdening our colleagues and friends and neighbors of color. And work for folks of color in affinity spaces is different. There's work that we need to do together, and then there's work that we need to do on our own, given our own particular context. So I know that sometimes there can be feelings around doing work in affinity spaces, like, oh, isn't the goal of this to come together? Why are we doing this separately? And can we trust, that we're doing the right thing? But it's a practice that generally has good results for allowing this work to happen, doing the least harm possible. So I want us to move into spaces, smaller group spaces, and I'm going to plant these questions for discussion now, and then we'll talk about the details of how we're going to get into these spaces, and then we'll put them again in the chat. Oh, Ren's already put them in the chat. Thank you, Ren. So these questions came from Pastor Jacqueline Duhart. And here's what we're sitting with. What was your family's connection to the capture, transport, trade, and sale of Black bodies? How did your family benefit? How do you still benefit? And how do you feel about this now? And I want to offer to kind of get the juices flowing. I want to invite Carrie to offer some personal reflection or a personal story in this manner.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to tell you a story that answers these questions. When I was growing up and well into my 50s, I understood that my great-grandmother was a recent immigrant from Ireland. As I joined Ancestry.com and explored further, I realized that that was just not true, that the family came from England and had actually been here since pre-revolutionary war time, pre-revolution. And I told my mom this. I said, Mom, this isn't, Grandma Runyon wasn't an Irish immigrant. And she said, oh, yes, she was. Don't be silly. That's the truth. Well, it wasn't the truth. And before we talked about it anymore, my mom has passed on to the other world. But the truth is, one night in a bout of insomnia, I was looking back through family records of my many times great-grandfather. And I found in his will and testament that he left to his daughter people, a mother and son. And the realization that my family had owned people, had enslaved people, rocked me. Not only do I benefit by my white skin privilege, but I directly benefit from my family owning enslaved folks. The interesting thing about this is that line has generation after generation of absolute tragedy. That woman, Grandma Runyon, had a child taken from her home in the 1920s for neglect. Her son, my grandfather, spent his life in and out of prison. There was addiction, rampant addiction, broken lives that came to my mother's generation and my generation and to the next generation. But what really gets me is there was no truth told. And the toolkit tells us that between truth and reconciliation are reparations. So this is why I will take this pledge to be a reparationist. My direct ancestors owned enslaved people, and it was a truth to be hidden for generation after generation after generation. And still, the harm ripples out to all of us. Not of course, at all at the level to which the people who were enslaved, but the damage is vast. How do I feel about it now? I'm ready to not just work for change, because laws can change and they can be undone. Policies can change and they can be changed back. I'm here for transformation. We're never going to go back to not having cars, not having electricity, not having the internet, and we need to transform this in the same way. So that's how I feel about this now. Thanks for listening, friends.
Thank you, Carrie. So this will be a space for each of us to dig in a little bit to the best of our abilities and from our individual locations, our individual social locations. So a brief word about how this is gonna fly. Let's see. So Ren is gonna open up, yes, breakout rooms.
Yeah, I've got 2 white affinity spaces, and then I do have a BIPOC affinity space in case there is identities there. And so you will actually self-select which room you go into. So just notice if there's everyone going to one, maybe go ahead and choose 2 so that we're in a balance, but you get to self-select. And so I think how that'll work is you should get a pop-up with breakout room, but if not, we can assist in that.
Mm-hmm. And there will be a spiritual care chaplain person present in each room. And Carrie, our community minister extraordinaire, will stay in the main room in case you need a different space, support in a different way. You can always return to the main room. And we're going to have about 20 minutes in our breakout rooms. And is there anything I am leaving out? Is anybody unclear about what is about to happen? Okay. I encourage you to lean in and be brave. Affinity spaces are the places where we can really do the learning that we need to do and or find the support that we need to find. So with that, ask Ren to give us the...
And then we'll be back around 5:05-ish.
Hi, Jillian, would you like to go into a breakout space or would you like to? Yeah, okay. All right, if you can hear me, I think Jillian's interested in going into a breakout space.
Okay, great. Jillian, do you know how to get in there?
I don't.
Okay, so you should, on your screen, hopefully it should say breakout room somewhere. No?
Can you move her in? Can you do that manually?
Yeah, I think I probably could. Let me do that. Okay, give that a try.
Got it.
Okay, excellent. And Jacqueline, would you like me to move you into a breakout room?
Maybe she stepped away.
Okay. Do you have the power to do that? Should I co-host you?
And maybe co-host me. And do you want me to stay out here? I know we said not, but then Sarah,
I don't know if do you feel like you need to?
I could stay here for a minute and then hop in and out, or that's not nice to do.
No, I think that's fine. That might be good, actually. You could just sort of check on groups and that.
Okay.
And then if Jacqueline comes back, maybe you could help her out.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, friend.
Can you do that as co-host?
I can. It looks like I can. Thank you.
And it looks like Scott and B are in the BIPOC affinity group, so I'll just join them.
Lovely.
That riverside, gonna lay down my burden down by that riverside. Study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Study war no more. No more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Study war no more. Lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Down by the riverside. Down by the riverside. I'm lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Study war no more. No more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no more. Study war no more. Doko di kami barangay. Namaboko na Yesu. Namaboko na Yesu. Namaboko na Yesu. Doko di kami barangay. Namaboko na Yesu. Nami kumisa Yesu. Study war no more. 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 I'm gonna put on my long white robe by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. I'm gonna put on my long white robe down by the riverside. Study war no more. 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 Study war no more.
Back, everybody. Just want to give a credit where credit is due, that was Down by the Riverside by Grandpa Elliott, playing for change. So to keep the sacred work that happens in the affinity spaces as such, we're not going to report out from our breakout groups, but hopefully these conversations will continue in the work ahead and to get us turning our heads, our collective heads toward the work ahead. I'm going to pass it over to B.
I have a short quote from artist and singer and actor and activist Paul Robeson. Sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free. Again, that's from Paul Robeson. February, as Black History Month, is just one indication of the white supremacy that surrounds us all. Please join us in once a month discussion groups that we're going to have, some Zoom groups online. We're going to have them in March, April, and May. This service today is kind of starting a process that the Chaplaincy Institute is taking to do some of this work, and leading up to a service in June that will be for Juneteenth. We will discuss some of the history behind the culture of white supremacy, the damage it does, and some of the things that we can do to change the future. It will, we'll get some tools and things, get to practice some things that we can take out into the world. So the Chaplaincy Institute is looking to change. And so we'll get those tools to change our small environment, our small world here, but then be able to also take them out into the world that surrounds us, as Scott and I were discussing a little bit earlier. There will also be a BIPOC group will be available for folks, because these discussion groups are for racial affinity groups to be able to discuss our own stuff. And so hopefully people will be brave in that space to talk about the things that maybe we've done wrong and continue to do wrong, and then learn a new thing today and be sorry about what we did yesterday, and figure out some of those ways to heal and to change and to move forward. So please check the CHI newsletter for dates and times. We're going to offer them at different times and on the different coasts, and to hopefully appeal to different people. And hopefully over time, some more people will watch the recording of this, and we'll have some need for more groups, because we're also in discussion about whether or not we will require students to be doing this. I'm up for that. But please look into the newsletter for the dates and times, and be able to join us in March, April, and May leading up to Juneteenth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bea. And as we are coming toward the end of our time together, at least for this moment, I want to offer you all back into reflection, or invite you all to come back into self-reflection. Take a moment and think of the next right thing for you to do, the next right step in this work toward liberation from white supremacy, toward anti-racism, whatever our racial identity. Think of the next step you're going to take, and maybe take a moment and write it down for yourself. Ask yourself, how does your call invite you to participate in this work? And if you are so moved, we'd love to see you write it in the chat. You might think about getting an accountability buddy, maybe from your groups here. You might private chat somebody that you've spoken with today, or just volunteer them that they're going to be your accountability buddy. I don't know. I can't necessarily advocate that. But if you have that kind of relationship, maybe. And then Ren, yes, thank you, Ren, has some ideas about other actions you might take.
Yeah, so this is just a list to get your appetite whet, and also just see maybe there's things here you're already doing. We can encourage our friends and our family to also step in, call each other in to this work. So HR 40 is a bill that we've talked about already. There's lots of amazing organizations doing work around this. And I did put together a resource list as well, which I will send you all. Since I have all your emails, I'll just send that to you that way. And it's another way to just learn more about what's going on specifically around the reparations work. Also voting rights, housing disparities, these are all connected to HR 40 work. Specifically though, this Thursday, February 24th at 6 p.m., there is a reparations discussion through the Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity with Justice, Not Jails. And I'll put this Google Doc in the chat because it is the sign up form, and it is also on your resource list that I will send you all. And then there's a couple others. You can check out Black-owned businesses in your neighborhood, follow Black activists on Instagram, fund Black independent journalists, come to the next elements of these series. So I'll leave it at that so you all can reflect.
Yes, thank you. Put it in the chat.
Now, as everybody continues to explore your next call to action, your right next choice, your right next step, let's come back into spiritual grounding here at the Chaplaincy Institute. You all are spiritual leaders, regardless of what your work is right now, regardless of where you are in your school process, regardless of retirement or moving toward retirement or desired retirement. I'm thinking of our dear friend B, who's working way more than she would like to right now. Your ministry is alive in the world. And we know that when cheap people take something on, the ripples go, the ripples go, the ripples go. So let's together sink into this. This reading is called There's Somewhere There's a Home, and it's from the Liturgies from Below. It's a collective, so there is no author named. Put your seat in your seat, your feet on the ground, connect to that giant web beneath us that connects across time and space. Somewhere there is a home, a place of rest, of reunion, safety and security, of peace, a communion of friendships, equals, not only in God's eyes, but in ours too. Believing in that home gives us hope and strength. I will work to make that home a house for you, for we, for us. I want to live there with you, my children and yours, my parents and yours, my ancestors and yours. I will work to make that home today, tomorrow, and in the days to come. Join me when you can. We'll blow out our candle, but then Sarah's going to take us on out.
Thank you, Carrie. And I just want to offer thanks to everyone for being here. Thank you for your grace and your, none of us is perfect in this work. And I really want to invite you all to hold me accountable, hold the leadership team accountable, and continue to hold each other accountable as we're moving forward, hopefully in greater and greater knowledge and greater love. I'm just holding you all in such gratitude for showing up in whatever ways you're able to show up today. And thank you for tuning in. If you weren't tuning in today, you're tuning in where you are and when you are. This is work that we don't do alone. We can't do it alone. And thank you for being in community with us in this work, with me in this work. I think this work calls us into our fullest humanity, which is a space for joy and gratitude. So I hope that we can all move forward in ways that open our eyes, feed our spirits, and bring hope and compassion to the world. And I just want to offer, we're going to have some music as we filter our way out of this Zoom room, as we walk down the imaginary hallway out of the gathering space. But want to offer that the leadership team will be lingering behind. If you want to send us a private chat, if you need support, if you want to linger, we'll be around for a few minutes. And you can also reach out after the fact. Ren is offering up their email. I know Carrie is also a fantastic resource as community minister. I am also very happy to be contacted if you have feedback or questions for me. So with that, I'm going to thank you all again and turn it over to the music of, let me tell you what we'll hear, the Freedom Singers. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around.
In 1962, in my hometown, we were engaged in a very intense struggle against racial segregation. And there were mass jailings. At one point, a federal judge issued an injunction with names on it of the people they thought were the leaders of the movement. Reverend Samuel Wells was in Shiloh Baptist Church that night. And he said, I'm not going to let no injunction turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Wait, I know this is a show, but you have to actually sing this song. You can never tell when you might need it. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom. Ain't gonna let no injunction turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no injunction turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, yeah, keep on talking, yeah, marching up to freedom land. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, yeah, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
All right.
Thanks so much for being together, everybody, tonight. Pleasure to meet you all, or to see you all and to meet you, Jacqueline.
Thank you so much. And I just want to mention that I did put I know that might scare people off because it's a video link on Vimeo, but that is part of what my offering is for the work I've been doing with the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm the chair of the education committee. So it's the first of several videos that are taking this inspiration. I have let them know, instead of just being for Black History Month, because my regular work was too much and getting done, that these videos will now continue based on the 1619 project, which I hope that you're all at least aware of, that these will continue until Juneteenth. And I'm really excited and have the support of many, and probably the eyebrows raised of many others, but this was the first one that got completed, and it's beyond my wildest expectations. It's less than 3 minutes, and it's one of my chaplain colleagues reading a piece from the timeline. And then he also reads the poem that follows it. And our videographer was able to capture all that and then put different photos and stuff for the reading the poetry. So I feel like we're getting them at the intellectual level as well as the emotional level. And I spent most of the month in a lot of angst over just that one video, because I said one for each week of Black History Month. And unfortunately, my census went way up. I lost my partner chaplain for a while, and whatever, life intervened as it does. But I think anyway, I think it was a good thing, because now I get to continue, and I will. And there will be a lot more than 4. Anyway, thanks for letting me say that.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. And if other folks want to plug the work that they're doing here in this circle, we can open space for that too. And please also feel free to depart whenever is right for you, and there will be more.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for all your sharing and presence.
Nice to see you, Cecily.
Yeah, take good care.
Bye, thanks.